workshop. Hopefully we have representatives from each of the clubs here. If not, I understand that it is a training night for a lot of clubs. We're going to be running through quite a few things tonight. So this is everything we're going to be running through. It'll swap and change between myself and David because he'll have some stuff to add in about the showcase rounds, etc. But yeah, like you said, at any time, if there's any questions that you have, just pop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them.
And sorry to cut you off, Mon. Just so everyone's across this meeting will be recorded as well. So in terms of note taking, if you missed some key points, don't stress. We will get this link out in the coming days. So they'll be easily available to share to your members, along with that being available on the PVL Facebook page as well, guys.
Yeah, I do need to apologize in advance if I do cough throughout this. All right, so you guys are all here as referees or representatives from your club for the referees. Just a few things that we wanted to touch on were just some expectations from you guys. So first of all, we want you to be professional. That means arriving before the official warm-up time so that you're present. The teams that are playing know who you are, they can identify you, and that they know that you actually know what you're doing. If you're there on time, it also means that you can't be penalized. One thing that Shane said last year was that think about how you speak to and around the playing teams and spectators, because you will be judged from the moment that you're around them, and people will make assumptions about your competency or attitudes based on how you speak to the players and coaches and things like that. So be professional in how you speak. If you are on this call or you've been nominated as a ref, we expect that you have a strong knowledge of the rules and you know how to apply them correctly. There are so many resources out there for you to see, for you to read and access, whether it's on the VQ, VA, FIVB websites. You can have a look at the rule book, but also have a look at the case book, because that's got actual applications. And then there's also a thing called the guidelines, which kind of puts it all into easier terminology for everyone to understand. Make sure that when you're looking at all those, you are looking at the most updated version, because there have been some changes in the past couple of years, as you would have been aware of, hopefully. If you're ever unsure about a rule or how to apply it in different situations, ask me, ask the ref supervisors, or the senior referees that you know that are around, whether they're from your club or a different club. There's quite a lot of us who are happy to help out. Shouldn't have to say this, but make sure that you're impartial, even if you like a team more than the other. Doesn't matter. You are there to do a job. You need to be impartial. You also need to be approachable. Yes, first referees are there to officiate the game and oversee the whole thing, but you need to be human as well. Make sure you're organized. So we'll talk about that a little bit further later on in this presentation, but be organized with yourself and with your entire duty team. And the last one is make sure you communicate. So if I make an appointment for you onto a game and you can or can't do that appointment, you need to let me know. Please don't assume that if you don't respond, it means that I know whether or not you can do it. Either accept or reject everything, and I'll show you how to do that soon. So the expectations for clubs or associations, make sure that you have a full duty team. As mentioned before, penalties are being put in place this year for every member of a duty team that's not there at the time of the coin toss. So you need a minimum of 5 at that time. So that's a first ref, second ref, scorer, and 2 line judges. If you want to add in an assistant scorer to do the flipping, that's fine. But it needs to be a minimum of 5 so that you don't get penalized and to make sure that you can get everything done before the game starts. As a club, you need to make sure that you can support your referees. So all the clubs have nominated people that are qualified and hopefully competent at reffing, but there will be people from outside of that group who might want to develop as a referee, might not have ever gotten on the stand because they were too scared or they didn't know how to get accredited. What we want to see is for more clubs to be looking to develop other referees as well, because we want as many as possible getting up on the stand. And then while they're on the stand, support them, give them encouragement, tell them how well they did. If there's little things for them to improve on, feel free to give them some feedback. That's not just on us or the ref supervisors, but you guys can give feedback too, because you're all able to. You're all experienced enough. So as I mentioned, there will be 2 different roles this year when it comes to referee supervisors and coaches. So for PVL, it's going to be supervisors, and for junior PVL, it's more of a coach role, because we find that with the juniors, they do need more assistance with how to do things, and it's just good to have a bit more guidance. That's why it's called referee coaches, not just supervisors. We want more of a mentoring type of thing coming from us. They are there to help. They're there to assist, to help improve our referee cohort. They're also there to ensure that match officials are fit for duty and that they are competent. So they'll be able to give clubs and myself feedback about whether or not a person is ready to be put on certain matches yet. And I'll take that feedback on board, because I would hate to put someone on, for example, a Prem game if they're not ready yet, because that just puts too much pressure on people and can lead to people not going back to refereeing. They can also be there to assist duty teams if required. It is not their main role. They are not there to teach teams how to score every single week. They are also not there to step in for absent referees for every single time slot. They are there if required to do those jobs. But the onus goes back on the clubs to be able to organise their own duty teams so that they're at the right level, so they can just do it by themselves and require minimal assistance. They're also there to implement on-the-spot protest resolution. So within the bylaws, you can see the flow chart of that, of how that all works. They are the first point of call when it comes to on-the-spot protests. If they have to escalate, you can read in the bylaws on how that works. But they are there to be able to hopefully resolve that right then and there. After a game, they'll review the score sheets. If there's any penalties that need to be applied, they will apply that. They'll check it, make sure that everything is done correctly, and then they will send it in. And then, like I said, they'll provide feedback when requested. So if you would like feedback, which I'll talk about a bit later as well, you need to request it. Please don't expect a referee, supervisor, or coach to have watched your game and be able to give you good feedback for the entire game, because they do have a lot of courts to manage. So if you request it prior to the match starting, even if you send it throughout the week, if you know you're appointed, that gives us heaps of lead and time to be able to organise quality feedback for you. So as you should all know from doing a level 2 course, your uniform and equipment are quite important. It's part of being organised. It's part of looking the part, looking professional, but also acting professional. So I've got a great photo of Russ here. He's got his blue ref shirt. If you're not sure where to buy one, there's 2 places. You can either get them from the Volleyball Australia shop, which very similar style. They just don't have that Joust logo on them. And I think the line is below the logo. Slightly different fit to the Joust ones, but they're both allowed. Make sure you have your whistle. I know that sounds really weird telling a referee to make sure they have a whistle, but you'll be surprised how much it happens, especially if you're second reffing and your team has just decided you're reffing on the day. Always have it in your bag just in case. Make sure you've got your cards with you. I know sometimes VQ have a set on the stand for you, but just in case, have them with you so that we don't have to be in the situation where people are holding up a fake card or finding a picture on their phone and holding up and saying, this is what you've got. It's that level of professionalism again. Have some sort of coin to toss as well, so we're not doing scissors, paper, rock. Toss coin makes it fair for everyone involved, makes it simple as well. Make sure you have a watch as well, or something that you can keep the time with. If you want to be like Ross, you can wear 2, as you can see, but you don't have to. It's mainly just to make sure that you can keep the game rolling from the warm-up to the end, because you need to be able to time the warm-up, timeouts between sets, etc. Scorers and line judges, you don't need to wear a ref shirt, that's fine. Make sure you've got enclosed shoes and you're wearing appropriate clothes. And make sure that if you've just played a game and you're icing something, that you're not doing that whilst you're standing on a line, because it'll drip and it'll become a hazard. For all parts of the duty team, make sure that you don't have any devices. So no phones, no AirPods, nothing like that, because your team will be fined per person that is seen doing that. So keep it away from the game. A few things that are put in place from this year is just with compliance. So your accreditation level is extremely important. It's in the bylaws, but if you are wanting to referee Div 1 or Prem, you need to be a level 2 or higher. This is just because if you haven't attended a practical workshop and you haven't actually had any practical experience, we don't feel it's right to put you on the stand for those level of matches. We want to make sure that you're competent and confident enough to be there. If it's Division 2 or below, level 1 is fine, but it does need to be level 1. Those two things are finable. If you put someone on the stand who's not any sort of accreditation or not the correct level, you can be fined, unfortunately. The other thing is blue cards. So because we pay first referees for Div 1 and Prem games, if they are in their blue shirt, you need to have a paid blue card. This is because players on the court could be under the age of 18, and so you're technically working with children. As you're being paid to referee, it needs to be a paid one, not just a volunteer one. If you're a teacher and you currently have an exemption card, that's fine. Just remember that those expire, I think, in August this year. So you need to renew that when it expires, but you should get a notice for that. We don't need the physical copy of the blue card, as long as you have the confirmation email that it's been processed and approved. That's fine, because I know that it sometimes takes like 2 months for the card to actually arrive from the printers and in the mail. So if you are looking to ref in Div 1 or Prem, please get onto that. Please make sure you have a blue card, because otherwise I can't really appoint you to games. So appointments and the roster. So as we've mentioned, all clubs or associations were asked to nominate their referees who they would like to ref for Prem and Div 1 duties. There are also referees who aren't affiliated to clubs or are in other divisions that are nominated for development reasons, or because they are a high-level ref, but not necessarily a Prem player, for example. With this new rostering system, I can only nominate referees who are, sorry, I can only appoint referees who are nominated in the system.
Mon, you're muted.
Mon, I might just jump in. It looks like you're on mute. So are you able to unmute yourself there, sorry?
How long was I muted?
So it's about 30 odd seconds.
Okay.
So we might just go back to the start. We might just do the roster slide again, I think.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. Okay. So I'll start again. So what I was saying was all clubs have nominated refs. So for Prem and Div 1 duties, there are also refs that are non-affiliated or from lower divisions within that club that are nominated. The roster is done for round 1 for referees. We haven't done anything else other than round 1 just because we have a ref course coming up, and it's just to give a bit of a buffer for clubs to nominate people. I'm not able to nominate referees that aren't in the system, so talk to your clubs or talk to us about making sure that you're in the system so that you can get appointments. After round 1, the roster will be sent out 2 weeks in advance, so I'll do 2 weeks at a time so that you can get a good idea of what you're doing for the next few weeks if you are appointed. With the new online system, appointments are made instantly and they're sent to your email that your club or yourself has put onto the system. If your email isn't linked to it, then you won't receive any correspondence, but I will follow up on that if I haven't heard from you by a certain time. You need to respond to it. Like I said earlier, if you don't respond, I'm not going to assume anything. You need to either accept or reject the appointment, but please note, if you reject it, we keep note of it, and we need to know a reason why. Because we don't want people just continually rejecting appointments and then thinking that's okay when they've been nominated by their club for a reason. If you are appointed to a game and you have confirmed, but you're running late, you're sick, you're injured, for example, please let us know early. Communicate that to myself, not 10 minutes before you're meant to ref. Needs to be enough time so that we can actually organise something. If a referee fails to show, it falls back on the duty team to provide someone to ref. For finals and showcase rounds, as they are more in the spotlight, we will be putting preference onto the referees that are not playing and also the higher level referees that are available. Because it is meant to be the highest level of volleyball, we want the highest level of refereeing available. Not to say that we aren't looking to develop referees to get to that stage. We definitely are. Because there's lots of games, so we need lots of referees. When I'm doing the roster each week, there are a few things that I take into consideration. So I look at the duty team and I try to roster from that team first based on who the clubs have nominated. If there's clashes with who they've nominated and another game, that there might be part of, whether that's coaching or playing. I obviously won't appoint someone to that particular game, and if there's no one else within that club who's able to do it, then I'll look elsewhere. I'll also look at the accreditation and experience level of the nominated referees for that duty team to deem whether or not it's suitable to put them on that game. For example, with the new accreditation system, a brand new level 2 associate referee who has only done a theory, only done the one-day course and never actually had experience refereeing PVL level, I wouldn't put them on a Prem game to start with. I'd make sure that they are ready for it. So if it says level 2 associate next to your name, just be aware that you might not be put on Prem games, even if you think you are ready, just because we want to make sure that you are competent enough. Your availability is also very important when I'm doing the roster.
Mon, I might just very quickly jump in. So just a couple of questions for everyone's advice just around that. So the messages come through from Carmen Key just saying, is emailing PVL chief ref the only form of communication? Guys, what we're looking to do at the moment is have email as a primary form of communication. If, for example, you receive an email notification from Mon saying, reject, appointment rejected or appointment accepted, and if quite some time passes and we're no closer to knowing the outcome, Mon will call you direct. We're just working on a bit of a solution at the moment with Mon to look to provide her with a phone if we're able to get that done. Likely won't be for round 1, guys, I'm going to be honest, but for rounds going forward, to provide Mon with a mobile device, which is out and out PVL chief referee matters, and that's primarily all it is. So Carmen, hope that answers your question. Another question comes through, how much level 2 paid per match? $35 as per the comp regs as well. So sorry to cut you off, Mon. I thought I might just answer those couple. I'll let you do your thing again.
Yeah, that's right. I will be talking about how to communicate with me a bit later in this presentation too. So it's more than just email, which I haven't spoken to David about, but he'll find out. So yeah, with this new appointment system, sorry, I will see if I can show you what. Can you guys see this, my new screen?
Yeah, all good, Mon. We can see that.
You can see that? Okay. So this is what I can see on my end. You guys have slightly different access. When I make an appointment, I look at the duty team, what the match is as well. I assign the referee. Once the appointment is made, it goes out to you, which I'll show you soon, but I can actually see who has accepted and who's rejected and who hasn't responded to each appointment. So that's what I'm looking for. If it's ever blank, that's when I'll be chasing you up. Or if it's rejected as well. Back to PowerPoint, hopefully. This is an example of the notice, the email that you'll receive automatically as soon as I click assign. It'll have all the match details that you need to know. It'll have the date, the time, who's playing, who the duty team is, and where it should be. To RSVP, I suppose, to respond to it, the small link down the bottom that says, could you confirm this match here? That's where you click. Once you've clicked that, you'll be able to accept it or reject it. So that's the email. After you log in, it goes to this particular screen. You click on that blue respond to referee appointment button, and it comes up with the 2 options, accept or reject appointment. Easy as that. As soon as you click it, as soon as you click submit, it goes straight to me and I know what you've responded with. Are there any questions with that before I move on? Because I know that is brand new. No. All right, cool. Okay, so all clubs should have access to this. You should also have access to it now as well as referees. If you don't, you need to contact VQ. Although I'm chief ref, I am not chief of technical things. So please don't come to me about how to access it because I can't actually do anything on my end. That is more David and Nathan.
So I'll just jump in as well again. Another question that's come through, stand by, this time from Rosanna. So where do we find this? Now might be a good time on to, I suppose, flag. Oh, actually, I'll take lead on it, actually. Okay. So in the way of the portal itself, that's part of the competition portal. So when you go into the PVL webpage and you click competition portal, that provides an overview of the first referee portal whereby clubs can basically nominate first referees or extend on their existing nominations. So I hope that answers that particular question. Another one that's come through from Ian. I'm yet to sorry guys, got a late admission here. I'm yet to be put in the system. How does this happen? So good question, Ian. We are just working on a solution pretty quickly to extend this to non-affiliate referees as well, mate. So we should have that as in ducks in a row by Friday. I imagine we just need to add on a bit of an extension to the current system. Just needed to make sure that for round one it's functional, and we use that as an extension. So I hope that answers your questions on those ones, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not on the system yet, I wouldn't have appointed you. Ian, you're probably the only exception to that. But that's just because your email isn't connected to your profile yet. But you are in it. They just didn't put your email in. Sorry. Everyone should receive, if you were appointed to round one, you would have received an email already, which would get you access to the system. So if you haven't received anything, it's because I haven't appointed you for round one. Probably because either your team doesn't have duty or because there's just so many from your club that I just picked a certain person and you weren't the lucky one. So going on from the question from before. So there are a few ways to contact me. That's to talk about the roster, your accreditation, possible development, asking for feedback in advance. First point of call is to email. That's the, I guess, most professional way to do it. It means that I can keep it all on file as well. The second one is phone number. That is not my personal phone number. That is a separate phone number that you can use just for the chief referee if you like. Just because I don't want people calling me on my personal number. But that one is fine for you to text or call. As a last resort, you can find me on Facebook, but that is probably a no-go for most people, simply because, one, it's unprofessional, and two, it means that it can be lost in message requests, and I might not see a message from you, especially if we're not friends on Facebook. So try not to do the Facebook one. Email, definitely. Phone, if you have to, especially on a Sunday, on the day of. That's a quick and easy way to get on to me so that I can let people know whether or not you are able to referee. That is the phone number that you will get a message from if I haven't got any confirmation about a referee appointment from you. So just keep that on file if you want to copy that number down now or save it to your thing, to your phone. Yeah, because I don't see the point in re-emailing people that didn't respond to the first email. If they didn't respond to it, they most likely didn't see the email in the first place, so they're not going to read the next one, that's when I would move to the phone number. If you would like some development and feedback throughout the season, we are all for it. We want people to upskill and get more experience, especially if you're looking at refereeing at higher levels or other competitions later in the year. We want to make sure that you're at the right level and that you have the opportunity to do that. Feedback can be either verbal or written, but you need to ask. We won't just assume that you want feedback or need it, so please ask prior. If you would like specific written feedback, or you want to be assessed so that you can upgrade from level 2 associate to level 2 state, you need to provide the form. You can find the assessment form either on the Volleyball Queensland or the Volleyball Australia websites under the refereeing pages. They're quite easy to find, but you need to print it out and bring it with you so that you can give it to the ref supervisor to fill in for you. They're not going to have copies for you. If you want information about how to upgrade, I can talk to you about the process individually. I won't talk about it now, but I would love to see a lot of if not all of the level 2 associate referees to become level 2 state by the end of the season. Not that hard. You don't need that many game appointments. By the end of the season, you should be able to tick that all off if you are competent enough. And like I said, contact me if you want information about development. There are also many high-level experienced referees around that you could speak to about it as well. I'm not the only person who can sign you off. A lot of the referee supervisors, for example, Linda, will be able to assess you, give you good feedback, sign you off, so that you can actually develop and upgrade. We're going to move into information about each role. So I'll do it first referee, second referee, scorers, and lines people, because it is quite different. So the first referee, that is the person who controls the game. You set the standard from the very start when you walk in to start the warm-up. You need to make sure that you have a thorough knowledge of the rules, the terminology, and application of them. Before you authorize a serve, do a quick scan. Look at your duty team, look at the team serving, the team receiving. Is everyone ready? And then authorize the serve. Too many times we see people, as soon as the point has finished, they have their arm up straight away, not even looking, just serve. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to do a quick sub, timeout, whatever they need to do before you actually authorize a serve. Your job is to manage the game. You're not there to dictate the outcome. Your calls should not make that much of an impact on the result of the game. When you make a call, it needs to be for a good reason. Look at the timing of the game. Is it 9-all in the 5th set and you're making a ball handling call for the first time in the game? Is that the right time to do it? Think about it. Think about how it will look. If it's the right call, by all means do it. But just look at your timing and see what's suitable. You set the standard. The players don't set the standard. Don't change how you would call things based on the level of play. By all means, our motto is to keep the ball flying, definitely. But don't pick and choose between certain players on court. If, for example, there's a setter that has got really magic hands and they set really well, usually, and then on the other side of the net, there's another setter that is a little bit dodgy, not the nicest, you can't just be picky because one is better than the other. Know what standard you are reffing to. Use your duty team. Like I said, do your scan. Use everyone involved. Check with your lines people, your second ref, make sure your scorer is correct. Make eye contact with them. It shows that you actually value their input, and they'll actually be more engaged throughout the game as well. If they make a really tough call or a good call, give them a thumbs up. A little one, I'm not saying a massive one, little one, shows that they're appreciated. As a second referee, a few reminders: make sure that you're positioning yourself correctly. You're not leaning up against the pole. You're not almost standing on court. You are always trying to be on the defensive side. So that means throughout the point, you should always be moving. If a ball is coming towards you, move out the way. A player, same thing. You need to be in a good position so that you can make good calls. If you're on the wrong side of the net or you're hidden behind the pole, you can't make a good call. You need to be aware of substitutions. As soon as a sub has walked into the sub box, you need to call it. They shouldn't have to wait to call out to you to be able to make a sub. You should be aware of it. You need to be aware of positional and rotational faults as well. So you need to have good knowledge of what rotations should look like, who should be where, who should be serving next, for example. You need to be able to help the scorer if they get stuck with something. Stop the game, blow your whistle, just say to the ref, just hold, help them out so that they can get it back on track so that you can recommence the game. You are there to assist the first referee. You are not there to make their calls for them. Be discreet when you're assisting, especially if it's something that you're not allowed to call. Sometimes second refs do see things that first refs don't see, but a lot of things that you might see, you're not allowed to call. So small hand signals that the first referee can see but aren't blatantly obvious are really good. You need to be able to communicate with everyone involved as well. So that's coaches, captains, your scorers, first ref, everyone. Because you are the point of call that they go to for timeouts, subs, how many entries a certain player has had, things like that. So your ability to communicate with people is really important. For the scorers, if you are there as a scorer, your job is just as important because you are the one that creates the official record of what happened in the game. So you need to pay attention, make sure that the score is correct, both on the sheet and on the flipper or electric scoreboard. If there's just one person doing it, it is a bit harder, but you should be capable of doing it. If there's two of you, no excuse. Communicate with each other if there are two of you. Make sure that your scores line up. The rule is whatever's on the sheet should be the correct thing. Before and during the game, you should always be checking the team list. Make sure that all players that are entering the court are actually on the team list. I'll go through all of this further when we do the scoring webinar, but that is one main thing because we don't want illegal substitutions or having to forfeit any sets because people are on the court that shouldn't be. Once again, you need to be able to communicate as well. You need to communicate with each other, between scorer and assistant scorer, and you also need to be able to communicate information to your second referee. The main things that you need to communicate are when a team has used their 12 subs, you need to tell them. When a player has entered the court for their third and final time during a set, and when a team has used 2 timeouts. Because that information then needs to be relayed from the second ref onto the coach or captain. So you need to be on top of it so that we don't have teams trying to go over their limit. Because unfortunately, the teams that do that get penalized for a time delay, even if they weren't told. Line judges. For some people, it is the most boring. Some people, it is the most fun because you get to play with a flag. I want to hear really nice, crisp flags this season because it shows that you actually care. You are there to assist, not insist. If you make a call and the first referee overrules you, do not take it personally. They just have a different view of the court. You don't need to go up to them and argue with them. You don't need to go up to them unless they call you over. Brush it off, let it go. It's not the end of the world if they do overrule you. Make sure you're in a good position so that you can see a lot of things. So you need to know where the ball's landed, whether the ball's being touched, its flight path in relation to the antenna, whether it has touched the blocker's hands, if it's gone around the net, if it's touched the net outside of the antenna, for example. You need to make sure you're in a good position so that you can make those calls. Also make sure that you're in a position when a team is serving that you're not in the server's way. So don't hug that sideline too much. Make sure you're paying attention as well. Too many times we see lines people not paying attention, and that's when players or spectators get really angry because they made a wrong call, even if it was correct. So pay attention the entire game, call everything, even if you think it's extremely obvious, and you won't get called out for it. Look confident when you make a call as well. Nothing worse than a lines person that looks really unsure about what call they just made. Look confident and people won't question you. Make eye contact with the first referee as well. When you make a call, make sure that they have acknowledged you, because a good first referee should be acknowledging their entire duty team. That's on you and the first referee. Okay. Any questions about any of that before I move on?
Yeah, I might just jump in myself, Mon. Obviously, guys, coming out of COVID now, thank God, the line judge flags can finally return. So obviously, it's been very much hands only for the last couple of years to limit interactions between people, particularly in sports such as volleyball, where everyone's in a pretty confined space. So the line judge flags will return. You're more than welcome to bring your own. We just really ask that people to show a little bit of care and due diligence after your match. Leaving them on the side of a court, not a good move. Deciding to take them home with you and show them off to your friends and family, probably even a worse move. We're very much, whilst we do have quite a good supply of line judge flags, we don't want to see the good supply go to a bit of a mongrel position after round one. So steps going forward, guys. Once the match is completed, you certainly encourage the line judge flags just to pop your line judge, other line judges, to pop your line judge flags just on the score bench and prep for the next duty team. Or if it's the last match of the day, the venue manager or referee supervisor, whoever is next closest, will certainly have them stored away. So just what I'd flag that one. Thanks, Mike.
You want to flag it about the flags. With the flags, make sure you've got a good grip. No, it sounds funny, but I've seen people at AVL and even international level matches where they've accidentally thrown it on or away from the court just because they got too excited and their hands were too sweaty. So make sure you got a good grip. To answer Ian's question, you don't have to let them know. It's courteous if you give a warning to them that they've done their 10th and 11th sub, but you really only actually have to tell them at 12. Same with entries. It's more of a courteous thing to tell them earlier so that they can prepare for it, but you are not required to, if that makes sense. This is in the bylaws, but the warm-up protocol is really important. So that's where the watch or timing mechanism comes into play. Official warm-up is for 15 minutes. If you've just had a game before your, game before your duty, I think it is. No, sorry. If you have a duty and then your game, the warm-up goes for 20 minutes rather than 15, but official warm-up always starts at 15 minutes. 8 minutes prior to the game starting, that's when you do the coin toss. So they can pepper or do whatever warm-up they need to do before that. 8 minutes prior, call the captains in, do your toss, have the captains sign the team list. A reminder that the captain can now be anyone on the team, including the libero. Straight after that, 7 minutes prior, you do spiking from the front. That goes for 3 minutes. Then you do 2 minutes of spiking from behind and 1 minute of serving. And then they have 1 minute to make sure that they're off court, they're ready. You get called on court, check the rotation, and then once it is at 0, that's when the first serve should be whistled. If we prolong it at any point, it means that we're just more likely to go overtime. And if games go to 5 sets, it's a very long day for people involved. So let's keep the warm-up protocol timed well so that the game starts off at the right time. I added this in to do with terminology and application. So these are a few things that I've noticed over the past couple of years that people call or don't understand how to call. So with ball handling terminology, there's no such thing as a carry. That is one word that is definitely not in the rules and regulations. It's a catch and or throw. So I want the referees to start changing their terminology, make sure that they're calling it a catch and or throw, not a carry. Just means that you're using the correct terminology, you're showing your level of knowledge and professionalism. If you're going to call a double contact, a lot of people think that you call it if the ball spins. Not correct, because a ball can spin backwards just from you flicking your thumbs through or doing this, anything like that. The ball can spin for so many reasons. If you're going to call a double contact, you need to look at whether or not you see 2 different actions, 2 different contacts on the ball, and you look at the context of the play. If a setter or a player is in a perfect position, they're completely balanced, and then they make a double contact, for sure, call it. But if they're chasing a ball down in a really awkward spot and it kind of looks like a double, let it fly. Don't penalize players for trying to be spectacular in their play. That's something that I wanted to add. With a screen, do get asked quite a bit for blockers that might sound like that when their team's serving or their hands up like that or doing this or something. It's not a screen unless 2 criteria are met. The first one is that the receiving team cannot see the contact of the ball of the serve at all. They can't see any of that action, and they also cannot see any of the flight path of the ball before it reaches them. So it's quite difficult to actually call a screen because it needs to meet both of those things. And generally you can see one or the other. Sometimes you can't see the contact of the ball because they've got really tall people standing in front of them, but you can usually see the flight path or vice versa. An attack is anything where the ball has been contacted above the height of the net from front court. There are some tall players that don't have to jump to be able to do that. It has nothing to do with whether or not a player jumped. It's all about the contact of the ball. So please keep that in mind when you are calling for illegal attacks. If a libero sets the ball within the front row and then someone attacks it, that is an illegal attack. I think we're getting really good at calling that, but just a quick reminder, they can bump set it from in front of the attack line, that's fine, But if they set it from above their head, if they finger set it for someone to jump to attack it, illegal. And that's when you just call an illegal attack. Rotations. So you should all now be aware of the update that occurred at the start of last year in regards to rotations. If you're not sure, look up the FIVB regulations. They have really good diagrams on what you should or shouldn't call, but it's pretty much that unless a player is getting an advantage from it, you don't need to call it if it's borderline. Really have a look at those diagrams that are available to you so that you have a better understanding, because it is quite different to what it used to be.
Just sort of might jump in again. Sorry, Mon. This question is from Rosanna, just asking. It looks to be in relation to screen. It is, yeah. So with this call, I always struggle to call this as from where you stand. It is hard to see. Is there any tips that you can provide first referees positioning wise to best identify if the screen is in fact a screen, I suppose?
Yeah, and that's why the rules were changed a bit, because it is something that is really difficult to see. Someone who's in a better position are your line judges. They can see it. So if you want advice from them, you can call them in, talk to them. Generally, if you see the receiving team having to look under, players are doing this the entire time, and then they're shocked when the ball is right next to them, that's a good way of knowing too. But generally, you're not really going to call it. That was my point of explaining it, was we don't want it called unless it's true. But yeah, by all means, use the lines refs. They're there. They can see it from a better angle than you. Yeah. So the previous years, there has been a history of some complaints or issues, whether it's from players, coaches, spectators, or something in regards to management. There is a process to follow. So first point of call, whether it's an on-the-spot protest or if it's a behavioural thing or a sanction, something like that. First point of call is the referee supervisor or referee coach. They can either resolve it on the spot. If they can't, they will escalate it to the next level. That escalation then comes to me. If I believe that it is out of my control, it goes to the next level, which is the members' complaint process. I think David would be able to speak on that a little bit further, but after that, it would go to the PVL control committee, and if that's not enough, the tribunal. We have had players in the past who have had to go to the tribunal. Bans have been put in place, and we don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, and I might just jump in. Thanks, Mon. So in terms of the VQ member complaint process, that's stipulated in the competition regulations for both PVL and JPVL. There's advice in the comp regs, both PVL and JPVL, around who in fact is the control committee. So i.e. myself, Mon, the VQ events manager, and on the odd occasion the PVL coordinator or PVL and JPVL coordinator. I'm just going to be a bit frank in what I'm about to say, guys, and it's more in relation to JPVL. A huge part of the purpose of referee coach, in addition to development of refs, is to have them comfortable on the stand. Found it really disturbing last year in particular. 2 different club presidents from 2 different clubs got sanctions for treatment that was deemed inappropriate, unnecessary, over the top to first referees, both under the age of 16. I'm not going to tolerate it this year. I just won't. If you're a president of a club, you should be the last person who finds yourself in that position, particularly the nature of junior PVL. Whilst the numbers are incredible, it's still very much mass participation, and it's a development pathway to PVL. And so totally different atmosphere, and it should be respected in that sense. So referee coaches, that's a big part of their job. We absolutely it's a zero tolerance approach this year, and it's totally unnecessary. And in both of those instances, guys, I won't name drop, but in both of those instances, both of those first referees have still to this day not gone back on the stand. So that gives you an idea of how our sport is not spared in this space around inappropriate behaviour that's demeaning, degrading, what have you. Whilst it's nowhere near as prominent in PVL, largely due to the age and experience of players and officials, coaches, etc. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that for JPVL this year. Thanks, Mon.
No, that's right. Yeah, although it is less common in PVL, I have seen it happen in PVL as well, unfortunately, where adult referees also won't go back on the stand because of how they are treated by coaches and players. So let's get control of that. That also comes down to game management as well. So if you see something from the start that could be escalated, nip it in the bud from the very start. We don't want to have to hand out cards or sanctions or anything like that. If we have to, do it. If it's warranted, definitely. But try not to get it to that point. Obviously, people do what they want and people will carry on and take it further than they need to. But if we can try and manage that early, that'd be great. If you are a more senior person in your club around the juniors, like I said earlier, please support them. Make it that they feel comfortable to get back on the stand. One further thing I forgot to add in was if you are on this call or you see this recording and you are not a member, you are not you're not nominated by a club or your club to referee, please get in touch with us because we want to be able to add some people into the system. We want to have a very full roster so that I can go through a big pool of referees. For example, Rolf, I see you on the call. You're not nominated, so if you want to ref, make sure you let us know and we'll add you in. David, do you want to go?
Yeah, guys, I'll just round out my piece before we go to questions, probably just around the showcase matches. So I won't go into ridiculous specifics, largely due to the fact I did that quite literally 24 hours ago. But in a short snapshot, guys, we've got the 7 rounds of the Saturday evening PVL showcase rounds. This only is applicable to Premier Men and Premier Women divisions. Each team, as in club, should I say, will have at least one go of a game on the show court. What we're really looking for now in this particular space is just a real awareness of, in particular, the duty teams. With clutch involved, commentary involved as well. It's just really important, guys. There's no expectation for club duty members to be fully kitted out in uniform, etc. But things such as no shoes, thongs, that's a thing of yesterday. The standard of our competition, the streaming side of things, we're trying to not only have PVL as a high level entry, there's a high level of participants playing in both the junior and senior forms. We're actually really transitioning now as an organisation to getting this thing visible, as in the project itself, getting the word out around volleyball to potentially thousands of people across this stream, most of which I'd like to hope wouldn't be associated with PVL. They could be neutral fans or spectators dialing in on the Clutch TV stream out of interest. So in the way of the duty teams, the first thing, guys, we'll actually require 6 duty members, not 5 for the show court matches. Now, the reason for that is for a lot of clubs thinking about QUT, UQ, North, Aces. They all had a dash on the show court last year, Wolves as well. With the configuration in Nissan Arena, there's actually a requirement for one person to operate their scoreboard so that on the big screen, when you've got both seating bowls on either side of the court, that one duty member is assigned the sole responsibility of updating the scores in line with the other scorer who has the flip scores. if you're getting my drift. So in addition to first ref, second ref, line judges, scorers, very, very important. Can't stress it enough, particularly if you're on a duty before your match. We really absolutely need the full complement of duty members. 6 things such as being on your phone, that's a nonsense. We won't tolerate it. Your mind drifting off, all those types of things. Whilst we've done a bit of a crawl before you walk approach in the way of using sport cam for those match of the day rounds last year, obviously with clutch and commentary provided and different angles, really trying to encapsulate a better delivery. So very politely asking the duty teams to respect that. Obviously it's a real luxury and a privilege to be able to utilize that show court for PVL, and obviously just going forward, guys, just really wanting the duty members in particular to really show some awareness on the court and just really have a good positive reflection on the sport. Did anyone have any questions on that? Nope, so I might throw back to you, Mon.
Forgot that I muted myself. I just want to add to that. As it is broadcasted and there are microphones around, be aware of what you say around the broadcast. I'm just going to say that. So please make sure whether you're reffing or you are scoring or if you're a line judge or something, don't say anything that you would think is inappropriate. Whether that's how you speak, swearing, anything like that, just be mindful because it'll be broadcasted, it'll be recorded, and it'll be remembered. I think we're just on to questions. So if there's any questions that you have, let us know now about anything that was or wasn't covered tonight. Shoot us the questions.
I think what we might get you to do, guys, is in terms of questions, if you do have them, just to expedite the remainder of the meeting, just feel free to unmute your microphone versus popping it in the chat.
For those show court ones, you were saying you were only going to really put people who are like level 2 and above. But if you're simply just doing the jumbo scoring thing, can we just volunteer to do that, or?
Yeah, so I was referring to like the first referee, and sometimes second referee. Yeah, no, everything else with the duty team, that can be anyone. If you're capable of pushing a button, perfect.
Sorry, Monique, was there any other new rule changes?
I don't think there was anything this year that wasn't already put in place from last year.
Okay.
How do we know if
Hey,
our
bye.
club is? Oh, sorry. How do we know if our club is put us down as a ref? Like, can we see that on the referee roster, or do we just have to hope?
Rosie, you are nominated, if that helps. So yeah, Rosie, you're nominated for East.
Okay, cool.
I'm not entirely sure how you guys would check unless you are given access by your clubs.
Okay, cool. As long as I know that I'm there, that's good.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly a bit of reliance there just on general communication. So just for advice, guys, typically the people who have been issued access to the first ref submission list are the same people who nominated teams. So we thought we'd go for a simplicity process and go, okay, it doesn't make much sense utilising different people to do different roles. Having a one-stop shop email, thinking about East at eastvolleyball.club, Wolves, sthbriz at sthbrizwolves@gmail.com, PVL@dragons.com, those type of things. So the pool will never have a window that closes. Rather, it will only build, and we're very happy with the numbers that we've got so far for this year. A bit of an increase on last year, which is great, but still a bit of a way to go. So hopefully that answers your question there, Rosanna. Ian, do we need, sorry, I might grab this one off you. So Ian's just asked as well, standby, do we need to have the level badge with the blue shirt when refereeing? Mate, that's very much a desirable but not mandatory approach for that particular question.
Just going to answer the one from Collar as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
From a payment perspective, yes, you need the blue card. If you don't want to be paid, then technically you wouldn't need to, but from a compliance matter, even if you are under the age of 18, from my experience when I've employed like coaches at school, for example, even if they're under 18, they're working with kids, they want to be paid, they need a blue card. If that makes sense.
Hey Monique, it's Andy from Wolves. I just wanted some clarification. I don't know if we covered it, but about uniform regulations for and what the duty requirement is for officials to manage that, or is that all done by the supervisors?
Of the playing team?
Of the duty team. So yes, recording that of the playing team. Is there any responsibility for the duty team for that, or is that all the referee supervisors?
Yeah, I'll take that one off your mind. Yeah, Andy. Yeah, mate. So basically, in short story, to a certain extent, the venue managers, but typically the ref. To a certain extent, the referee supervisor, but that technically will fall largely on the venue managers. Now, just on penalty registers, those type of things, they'll actually be updated when the score is inputted into our results management system. So gone are the days of waiting days and days and days for VQ to bash out the penalty registers. They will literally be done within a handful of minutes after a match. So in terms of those technicalities, the venue manager will certainly own that piece of infringement if that helps you, mate.
Yeah, no dramas. Thanks for clarifying that.
I suppose that's the same with referees being paid or not, whether or not they're in their blue shirt. It's generally the venue manager that takes note. So
yeah, it certainly is. The VMs guys, they're pretty big on it, and they're well versed and well trained. As part of the outfitting requirements, this should not be news to anyone. This has been a rule for 3 years now. Payment is only provided subject to outfitting, i.e. having the official blue Volleyball Australia shirts. That's obviously pretty important. If that is news to anyone on this call, my best advice in the interim would be to look to borrow a blue shirt if you have been assigned an appointment for this Sunday and you don't actually have one in your possession. That will get you out of trouble until you hit the VA online shop to purchase one. So I hope that puts that, if that was a potential question, to bed as well.
Hi, David. I was just wondering if you could advise if players or referees could get venue allocation preferences or something like that. Hypothetically, if they're playing at a venue, whatever it may be, is that considered, or can they swap? Or
yeah, certainly considered, mate. Very rarely, unless in extreme circumstances, are actually requested by the referee. In the vast majority of cases, the first referee will be allocated, if a playing referee, of course, they'll be allocated to their respective team's duty. So say, for example, we'll just pick a random club here. Let's just go Redlands Div 1 women, for example. And basically, if you have a duty before your match and you're allocated as the first referee, you'll be allocated to the Redlands duty before Redlands play. Monique and I will be flexible in that space. I mean, if there is a request to do a different match, we'll certainly look at that on a case-by-case basis. But the absolute vast majority of times, guys, just to make your lives easier as well,
Yes.
is to have a referee on a duty of the team which they play for, and then as an additional layer, it's very much a lesson learned approach from VQ. We've made a couple of errors in the past of putting a referee on a different court to what they're playing on in consecutive time slots, and due to the untimed nature of our sport, that can pose huge dramas. So, yeah, hope that answered your question, mate.
Yes, for sure. If I were playing in Div 1, if I'm playing in Div 2, but am a level 2 referee, obviously I'll be allocated to Div 1 or Prems, and that would be most likely at a different venue. So how is that incorporated?
It's a very good question. For protection of clubs, the onus is certainly to have a first referee if you are a playing referee. Whilst we will always look into a first referee from a lower division, the onus is very much on clubs to ensure that they are protected in the way of, okay, if you're Slavic United, for example, and your Div 1 men, for example, you should be able to absolutely provide an accredited level 2 referee from not from a lower division. That shouldn't be your sole reliance. It's a numbers game, PVL, as we all know.
Yes.
And so with that, so with that presents challenges. Typically, we always like to keep Prem 1 and Prem Junior together for quite a few reasons. They are the forefront of the project, but also too, a lot of Prem participants happen to coach Prem Junior as well. So if that does pose an issue whereby you've been allocated as a first ref for Prem or Div 1, noting that 9 times out of 10 you'll be at a different venue, you'll need to get in contact with your club ASAP.
Yes.
And still make yourself available, but logistically, I wouldn't advise it at least regularly.
Sure. Thank you, David.
No worries, mate.
I would add to that we would look at when your games are as well. If there's, if you're like the first time slot and the time slot that you might want to duty is the last time slot at a different venue, then obviously that's more possible than back-to-back or one time slot in between. So we'd look at possibilities. In the chat, Catherine has responded. She's from VQ, so what she is saying, please listen to her. In regards to the blue card, she's not just giving her own opinion. She's actually saying what VQ are saying.
Is there any last questions from anyone, guys, before we wrap it up?
I have a quick question. Just sort of at the end of PVL last year, I did an assessment because I was a level 2. Well, it was called candidate then, associate now. And I got assessed and, they said it was all fine. But I wasn't told to bring paper or anything, like to get filled out. And I talked to, I think it was John Burns who assessed me. And he said it was fine, I passed and everything. But I haven't received anything. And I'm sort of like, do I get assessed again? Or can someone just do it for me?
Thanks for your question, Rosanna. It's the first I've been made aware of it, so I'm just going to give it a few seconds of thought. So basically, I think for what it's worth, if you are, if you understand, for example, in round 1, I think we'd have to work together, as in Monique and myself, to have someone just oversee a good portion of your match. Now, I think Monique alluded to it earlier around if there's assessments to be had, etc. Monique, feel free to jump in if I'm incorrect, but I was under the impression that the onus is on the referee themselves to provide that paperwork in order to have the assessment fulfilled. So my best advice in a short answer, Rosanna, would be to certainly bring your paperwork along with you for round one, or any future round if you're not on the stand for this Sunday. Monique and I will flag that with the respective ref supervisor, and we'll look to get that addressed ASAP for you.
Awesome. I'm not reffing this week because my team doesn't have a duty, but I think next week, so I'll bring it then.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just feel free, if you don't mind, Rosanna, just feel free to email Mon at the PVL Chief Ref email and CC me in. So clubs@vq.org.au, that's me. And we can just make a note of that for round 2, which would be Sunday, 7th of May.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions from anyone? Sorry, guys. Okay, I think we're okay. So just wanted to take this opportunity, particularly for those of you who have doubled up and you did the General Tech meeting last night, and obviously the Qualified Refs workshop again tonight. Massive congratulations to Monique in delivering a very good presentation. It's very engaging. There's some very good tips and tricks on how to survive the season as a first ref or an official for that matter. So Monique, massive thank you to yourself for facilitating tonight. If there is any other questions going forward, guys, by all means, reach out to Monique in the first instance, and if needed, feel free to CC me in. This will be, as I was mentioning earlier, this meeting has been recorded, and so we will release the link, like to think, before we hit Sunday. So thank you again for your efforts, guys. I appreciate it's an extremely busy time of season, heading into round 1, of course. So thank you all for your efforts, and best of luck on this Sunday. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks again, Monique.
So good. Thanks, everyone.